Alright, welcome back to the tutorial. So, as we move Bob, welcome back to the tutorial. So in the previous tutorials, we started really sort of getting into this idea of battling this NPC of ours. And so far, it is pretty one-sided, right? So this NPC just keeps coming after us, and there's not really much that we can do except kind of try to get away here. But I don't know about you, I'm pretty tired of this NPC kicking our butt. So let's start programming a way for Bob to fight back. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to Project Manager, External Events, and I'm going to create a new external event here. And I'm going to call this one Bob Attacks. Okay, let's associate it with the Basic Kingdom room. And then let's go ahead and let's fix this up a little bit here. Make it a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to move the Bob's EEs up here. There we go, right up here. And let's make our link before I forget. There it is. Alright, let's make sure that this is under the correct heading here. Okay, so what do? If we go to Load Game and we look at our battle management system here, we have just two variables right now. We've got bmanager.begin and bmanager.end. And we're going to use these to sort of trigger the beginning of a battle, right? That way we can control sort of what's going on in the game. You might not always want Bob to be able to, attack. So this is a good way to do that. It also controls how much code, excuse me, how much code we're running. So let's use our trigger variable here, bmanager.begin, as our way into Bob Attacks. Let's get a new event here, and let's say if our variable, global variable, value of bmanager.begin is equal to 1, we're going to do, and then let's go ahead and add a sub-event here. Now, the way we've been coding here, I've been telling you always want a way in and a way out. But if you think about this one, right, there's no real way to know when we're going to have a way out here, right? So we're not going to code the way out just yet. Instead, we're going to probably code bmanager.begin equal to 0 in maybe another external event. So we're just going to let this run actually the way it is. And while bmanager.begin is equal to 1, Bob is going to be able to attack. Alright, let's just have some fun here a little bit. Let's get Bob going, and then we can refine our code and tie it into our weapons more specifically later on. Let's just talk about how these objects are going to work. I want to have Bob be able to shoot his sword, right? At least maybe specific swords, I want them to be sort of projectile. So how do we do that? Okay, well first we need to set a condition to do something with the sword. So let's do key press. We're going to do, key released. And I'm trying to limit this to just 2 buttons. That's it. So far we use spacebar, right? The D key we're using just for debugging for coding. And then I think we've used the enter key as well. So let's keep spacebar as kind of our action key here. So when space key is released, what do we want to do? All right. Well, we need to create a weapon. Okay. Let's take a look at the Basic Kingdom room layout screen for a second. You might recall way back when, right? Way back when with the chest, we edited points and we created kind of our own little collision mask to say that, you know, not the chest, sorry, the table. Sorry about that. Desk, there it is. We set up hit points so that Bob could be able to walk inside the desk as opposed to getting blocked right here at the edge, right? And there, I think we talked a little bit about points. If not, we'll talk about that now. So when you go to Bob and you go down to Edit Points, you'll see that it's got this yellow point here, and that is the center point of everything. It's set up directly in the middle. You can create objects based on these points, and the way that's, or the reason why that's really useful is that you can set up a point of origin for creation of something if you wanted, like out here, right next to Bob or something like that, or within the scope of Bob. Maybe you wanted to create a sword coming out on the right hand side. You could put a little point right there. We'll deal more specifically with points later on, but for right now I just wanted to bring it up as an option. Okay, all right, so Bob's going to attack. What's going to happen here? We're going to create a sword. Okay, so let's start that. Let's do common actions for all objects. Create an object, and we're going to create a sword here. Now here's where you would use the points, right? You could say, you could go here and go to, where's Sprite? Here's Sprite, there we go. You could go to position and see X position of a point. That would be, you would choose Bob's position, and if you created a point, you could put your created point in there as well. For right now, I'm just going to put Bob's position. So it's bob.x, bob.y. Now this is important right here, right? We're going to leave it the base layer, and the reason why is because, remember, we have a sword on our inventory layer as well. So we don't want to mix those layers up, really. So base layer, we'll keep it there. So when we hit the space key, when it's released, it creates an object sword. Let's go ahead and give our sword a Z order as well. Always a good idea. It doesn't have to be an insane Z order, it just has to be more than everything else out there, pretty much. Let's set it equal to 20. Alright, so we created a weapon here. But what ends up happening is it's just gonna, you know, it's just gonna like sit there basically. Let's go ahead and run our preview just so we can see how this works along the way. Can you figure out what went wrong? Let's take a look at why this isn't working. We've got two things here, right? Yep. We never actually set bmanager.begin equal to 1, so it's not executing this code here. Alright, for right now, let's go ahead and set bmanager equal to 1 as our default. And that's just for our purposes here of kind of testing this out. But let's add a comment here to remind ourselves again. What happened to my comment? There we go. Set bmanager.begin equal to 0 when starting game. Okay. Alright, so now when we run our test here, it should work out just fine. Okay, look at that. We're leaving swords around. And actually, you know, this may look a little ridiculous, but if you think about it, this actually has its use as well, right? Let's say you wanted to give Bob a weapon like, I don't know, some kind of like bomb that he can leave behind him, which is actually kind of a cool weapon. You could just code this here and then, you know, code your collisions, and that would work actually pretty cool. But we want a projectile here, so let's go ahead and keep going. So what do we want to do? Well, let's add another sub-event here, because I think we're going to need to do a couple of things here. Let's add, I'm trying to think if I want to do that this way right now. You know what, just leave this here, because I think we're going to use it. Let's add momentum to our action now. So we're going to go to Common Actions, Movement. We're going to add a force and angle. So we're going to add a force to the sword. Now the angle is going to be the same angle. Remember, we've got Bob is facing different directions, right? And we know the angle of those directions. We've done that math before, right? It's zeros to the right, 90 down, 180 to the left, 270 up. So we want to get Bob's angle and feed it that information. So the sword is going in the direction of Bob's angle. Okay. Now if you don't change the speed here, it's just gonna lie flat like it's been doing. Let's give it a nice 400 pixels per second speed. The other thing is we want it to permanently go across the room until something acts upon it. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's see what that does now. All right, look at that. All right, but as you can see, a couple of things with the sword, right? The sword is facing completely the wrong direction. That's because we have to rotate the sword as well. All right, so let's do that. And we should probably do that right after we create the object. So we'll move this up in a second. Sprite, direction, change the direction, the sword, and we're going to set the direction of the sword equal to Bob's direction. Let's see, let's make sure we got to get the direction here, right? Sprite, direction, okay. Now the only reason why this works, and I want to make this very clear, let's look at Basic Kingdom Room layout again. You see how Bob's facing to the right, and our sword is also facing to the right here? So we can mirror these because they're both starting at the same origin point. If the sword were facing to the left, that way, with the sharp edge to the left, we would have to make these opposite each other, at least on the x-axis here. Okay, so there's something to be said for keeping all of your directional objects the same direction at the beginning. All right, let's see how we did. Let's run a test here. Okay, good, good, good. All right, look at Bob go. Okay, so we've got a bunch of refining to do here, but let's stop right here for this one because then we want to take our time and sort of really refine this a little bit.